Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining this week's edition of RPI's Tech Talks. This week, we are focused on supply management, and we will be demonstrating the new contract proposal process within Infor Cloud Suite version 11. So with that, it is with great pleasure to introduce today's presenter, Ms. Stephanie Marquez.
Thanks, Dan. I appreciate it. Hi, everybody. We're very glad to have you with us this afternoon. I just want to get us started with some of the things that we're going to be taking a look at and discussing. So our agenda for today, as Dan mentioned, we're going to be looking at the new contract proposal process within Cloud Suite. So we're just going to briefly touch upon what prerequisites you may need for your system as far as roles or system setup. We're going to touch on some of the benefits of implementing a process such as this one. We're going to look at the high-level process flows and the different roles that it impacts. And we'll also simultaneously go through the demo where we're going to just enter in some data, look at some maintenance, and then how the items are. So some of the prerequisites to perform the new contract proposal request is, to be quite honest with you, it's just basic contract management setup. What we're going to look at today is there are no customizations in place as far as the forms are concerned. But in order to utilize this function, you would want somebody in your organization to have access to the requester role to be able to create the contract proposal. And then throughout the organization, you'll need someone to be a contract manager and have that role to review, update, approve, make any changes of those proposed contracts. And then ultimately, in order to get that proposed contract to an executed contract, through the contract approval process, you would need an approval role as well. So just looking at some of the benefits as far as the contract proposal, as a Lawson user and somebody who used to be a contract manager, I know I would get requests for new contracts via a Post-it on my desk or a stack of papers. So utilizing this functionality is really going to help to streamline the business process. It's also going to encourage automation throughout your organization. So something to keep in mind is we're going to take a look at the contract proposal wizard, and it can be customized if there's a certain field or requirement that you and your organization think might be best for your business process. It can be added in. The contract proposal is going to help to decrease the need for paper. So everything that we're going to look at today can be done electronically. And again, it kind of helps to keep the process organized and all in one place. And then if you're that requester who's actually the one who's doing the requesting, there's going to be a faster response time. When you put your proposal into the system and you submit it, the information is available immediately for the contract management team or the contract administrators to be able to review, collect any additional information that they might need to then carry it on through the process. And then additionally, it's just going to help to create some more visibility for your organization. So increased visibility on maybe contract needs for a specific department, excuse me, a requester, and just give some better information all around. What we're looking at here is just the high-level process flow. And as I mentioned, we're going to be going back and forth between the contract manager role and the requester role. This process actually starts in the requester role. You'll see that they're going to create the proposal, which essentially is that contract header detail. They're going to be able to enter in lines for the request and then attach any supporting documentation that they might have prior to submitting it. So at this time, we're just going to kind of navigate over to the system. Excuse me. There we go. And what you're looking at is FSM Cloud Suite, and over here on the left-hand side through the application switcher, you'll see that I am in the requester role, and this is the home screen of that role. So if I scroll down on my tab, I'm going to see the option here for contract proposals. If I expand that out, I have the option to propose a contract. And again, like the create contract, this is a wizard tool that helps to capture only specific pieces of information. And as with anything in Lawson, if it has an asterisk, it is going to be a required field. So we're just going to enter in some information. I live up in the Northeast, and unfortunately, we still have snow. So I was inspired to create an agreement for landscaping and snow removal. So the name field is just going to be how you as the requester think that your contract should be named. And then we would recommend including any additional descriptors within the description field. So for example, this one I'm putting in that it's for a specific location, and you have quite a bit of character size within this field to expand on. Now as a requester, you would be required to enter in the supplier information, and you'll notice that you can search throughout the system for that supplier. So I'm going to select Northeast Outdoor Services as my supplier, and then same with the supplier contact. You can search that as well if you don't know what the value is. This supplier only has one contact, so we're going to go ahead and select it. And I would encourage the requester who's filling out the information, putting in as much detail as possible is going to be helpful for that contract manager to continue the process and the contract execution. So if you think that you know the effective date or about when this is going to commence, you would want to make sure to enter in that detail. It is not a required field, so the form would still work if this information was not entered, but today we're going to. And the same would apply for the default account information. If you know that specifically it may be just for your company, your department, your account unit, you can enter in that information, but again, it's not required. So we've gone ahead and we've entered in the required fields and then some, and we're going to go ahead and click next. It's going to tell us and give us a prompt that our contract has been created, and now it's moving us along to the lines section. So one of the things to kind of keep in mind with the lines is that you can create the lines, or you can even search your item master. If you know that it's an item master item that maybe should be on contract, you can do that as well. But again, this is a service contract proposal that we're writing, so we're just going to go ahead and enter in the service information. So I'm going to do this agreement with, this proposal with 2 lines. My first one's going to be snow removal, and I'm going to put that in the item number field. The vendor item information is not required because we're doing it from a service standpoint. And then for the description, I'm going to enter in some additional description, snow removal, and again, for what buildings or locations that may be. For the service code, I'll want to indicate whether it's an amount or quantity, just keeping in mind that an amount would set this agreement up as similarly to a not to exceed, whereas quantity would give you an actual quantity to work with. Put the unit of measure in there and go ahead and click save. So my contract line has been created. I'm just going to quickly go ahead and do another one. So we've got a line in there for snow removal, and now I'm going to enter in a line for landscaping. And I'm going to change this service code to quantity, just because I know that my landscapers are going to come out every other week, and maybe I don't know how often they're going to come across. The pricing that we're proposing, our unit of measure, and again, we're going to click save. And our second contract line has been created. So if there's no additional information on this field, we're just going to go ahead and next through the wizard. And you'll notice that you have the opportunity for attachments and to attach documentation to your contract proposal. So if you are working with a supplier and you have a quote or a PDF documentation or a price file and an Excel sheet, you can attach all of that information here. And again, it would be available for the contract manager to review once you submit your proposal. So for our example today, we're going to create an attachment, and I can search my files, and I have a Tech Talk sample doc all set, and I'm going to submit it. I have the pop-up that's told me that my contract attachment has been created, and then you'll see here I have a hyperlink. So if I wanted to validate that a step further, I could select on it, it would download the document and then open up into Word. I'm just going to go ahead and click next. This is just very high-level contract summary. It tells me the contract group that I've created the proposal for, what that proposed contract number would be, and what I've named it. So I'm going to go ahead and submit proposed. And so I have the indicator here that the following action has been completed and my proposal has been submitted. And I want to take a moment to point out here on your left-hand side within the application and role switcher, I have the contract proposals we are working in propose a contract, but I also have view my proposed contracts. So I'm going to select on that, and you're going to see that the contract that we just entered and submitted for proposal is top on our list here, and this just keeps a history of where all of our other proposed contracts are. And again, it just takes the detail from that summary page that we just looked at, so it gives us that number, what we've named our agreement, the description, the effective expiration date, primary contact, and then the proposal status. So you'll see here, this requester has a few proposals that were rejected, a couple of them that have been accepted, and then a few still in the proposed submitted state. And then once that contract has been accepted, it keeps track of the contract status for you here as well. So this form can be really helpful in that it gives you some basic high-level information in a list view that we know can be exported into Excel if need be for any recording purposes. And one thing I'd like to mention is that, if there was a field or a value that was more beneficial to your organization that you would like to see here within the proposed contract section, you can customize or personalize that for your user or your organization as a whole. So at this time, we're just going to go back over to our PowerPoint, and we're going to, all right, revisit our process flow that we looked at and just recap. So the contract proposal process, again, it's similar to Create from Contract like a wizard is, and it just walks the user through entering the information, which is helpful. There's not too much of detail that's required, but there is some information that's required. And again, for creating lines, they can search the item master and attach item master items or enter in service items as well. And then upload attachments in addition to that. That's, again, beneficial to the contract manager. And then lastly, we took a look at the My Proposed Contract so that requester can see from here, again, where the status of their information is within the system. Before we transition into the contract manager role, I wanted to highlight, again, the process flow. And so the contract manager will have the option to review, accept, or reject the proposal, put it into an actual contracting process, and then go ahead and do any additional steps necessary to actually create that contract for release, approval, and activation. We're going to take us back to our FSM environment, and we're going to transition into the contract manager role. So you'll see for my application switcher, I'm on the contract manager homepage. And if we click on manage contracts, it opens up all of these various options for us. So our in process, active, on hold, etc. We're going to look at the proposed contract tab. So from here, if I'm a contract manager and I'm essentially living within this role for my day-to-day tasks, this is something that I can monitor and see the information in detail coming over essentially in real time. And you'll notice here that this is the contract that we just entered into the system. And so as the contract manager, I can view it in this list view, or I can make the selection and actually open up the agreement. Now, one thing that's nice is because the proposed contract is assigned a contract number, if I'm the contract manager and I open up or select on that proposed contract, it actually brings me in to all of the contract fields. So if I'm working this agreement prior to releasing it for activation and I want to update some of the information, I'm going to specify what my contract type is and maybe build it out as far as I can prior to releasing it. I can go ahead and do that here, and I can save all of those changes without yet accepting or rejecting that proposed contract. So you'll see up here, I have the option to accept it or reject it. We're going to go back to our list view in the proposed contracts. And we're going to take a look at one and see what happens when we reject it. So this maintenance service proposed contract was entered. And you know what? We realized we already have one in the system. This is a duplicate. We're going to reject and close it. So if I click on reject and close, a response is required. And that information is then cataloged so the requester can see why it maybe was rejected. So we're going to say it's a duplicate. And it's going to ask me, do I really want to do this? Because what it's going to do is it's going to take that proposed contract and it's going to put it into a closed status. So we know that once a contract has been closed, no other changes can be made to it or no action taken against it. So our contract has been closed, and we could find it over here in our close tab. And now to accept a contract, we can do it right from this screen here, which is our proposed contracts list view. Or if we were to select into the contract, we can do it from within the agreement as well. And again, just kind of highlighting where that action can be taken, which is just here. So I've gone ahead and accepted that proposed contract. It then tells me the acceptance has been complete. And if I go back, it's going to have removed the contract from proposed, and it's going to carry it through over to in process. So I can see it down here, and it's in my in process section, which is ready to be built upon to be eventually released and activated. So we're just going to transition back to our slide deck and go through and review some of the things that we've talked about. Again, the contract manager can locate the proposed contracts within the proposed contract tab. And again, it's important to know that if the contract is rejected, it does go into a closed state. And if it's accepted, it moves to a process to be worked further. One thing that I'd really like to identify that's kind of a nice feature is, as a requester, you know, that view my contracts is great to look at, but sometimes they may not live within that system all day, every day. But the system is able to generate an email notification when their proposed contract has been accepted. So this is just an example of what that email notification looks like. In the way our system is set up, it's pretty basic. So this is the out of the box. It just tells the user that your proposed contract has been accepted. It gives them that contract number as well as the contract name. So just as an overview of what we've looked at in the system, again, we looked at some basic system prerequisites. High level, we talked about some of the benefits of instituting the new contract proposal request within your Cloud Suite environment. We looked at the high level process flow and how it would impact the requester as well as the contract manager. And then just some of the various areas within the system you can go to maintain the contract or review the contract status itself. So I'd like to take this opportunity to open it up to our viewers if there are any questions. I know Dan has been monitoring that, and we're going to use some time to answer those.
So we do have a couple questions here. So what would you say is the level of effort to set this process up?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So what we looked at today, as far as today's example, it's minimal effort. We have the basics set up in the system. There are no specific customizations or configurations for what we looked at today. So that's just kind of out of the box, what the proposal request would look like for the user. That's a good question.
Awesome. Is our organization able to customize the proposal wizard screens?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So we've sat with other clients in the past who maybe, want to see some additional information or want to make the requester responsible for inputting additional information into the system. So as long as it's within a business class, within the contract manager contract forms and fields, that is something that would be able to be customized, yes.
Awesome, yeah, I definitely see a lot of value from that.
Definitely.
We have one more question right now. We'll see if any else roll in. But the last question that I'm seeing is, are we able to leverage security to see or to determine who has access to that proposed contract feature?
Yeah, so what I would say to that is yes, through a customized security role, but just kind of expanding on the benefit of having really thoughtful design discussions within your organization, with IT, with leadership, with your contracts team, maybe the requesters or managers, and really kind of identify at that point what makes the most sense and for what users. So yes, that can be customized through a custom security setup role.